Hi, and welcome to Journey Forward with Jory Rose, where you will gain insights, tools, and inspiration to get unstuck and live your best life. Jory is a licensed marriage and family therapist with a passion for helping people cultivate awareness and authenticity so they can show up fully in all aspects of their life. And now, here's Jory.
Hey friends, it's Jory Rose. Thank you so much for tuning into my podcast today. And I was just curious, have you had a chance to visit joryrose.com for the amazing upcoming retreats I have this fall? Don't miss out. Spots are limited. I can't wait to journey forward with you. Enjoy this next episode.
Hi, and welcome back to Journey Forward with Jory Rose. I am so looking forward to our conversation today with John Shearer, who's coming all the way from Australia. John, welcome. So happy to be able to be talking to you today.
Thanks, Jory. We do go back quite a ways. We've had a bit of an association for many years now.
Yeah, so I believe that connection started on Facebook. You have your Mindfully Mad Facebook private, I don't know if it's not private group, but Facebook page. So tell us and have the listeners hear more about you and how you came to the mindfulness world and what you're doing.
Yeah, well, I've been on quite a journey as well. And I love the name of your podcast, by the way.
Thank you.
My journey, I'll share a little bit of it. In 1982, I died in a truck smash and my dog was killed and it was pretty horrific.
Oh my goodness.
A lot of physical illnesses, physical injuries. But the lasting thing that I had out of that was 15 years of mental suffering. I was later that year.
15 years ago?
Yeah, that's
I'm
1982, yeah. Wow, it's a long time ago now. But later that year, I had my first psychosis and was diagnosed with mental illness. And this went on for 15 years.
Wow.
I was in and out of mental health clinics, and I was on a
What was the result from that trauma?
At one point, I was very suicidal. I had shock treatment at another point. But you know, Jory, I'm really thankful for what I call my 15 dark years because it's helped. I learned many lessons and it's helped me become the person I am today.
Yeah.
I don't know about you, but I really believe to truly walk in the light or be enlightened, you've got to have dark times. You know.
Absolutely. Yeah, you know, it's all those beautiful cliches of the lotus grows in the mud and you can only see the stars at night and the bread dough only rises in the dark, right? All of these things, they're cliches because they're true.
Absolutely. Yeah. And what changed my life, and this is why I love sharing my story, it was actually 10th of October in 1997, which was to become World Mental Health Day, 10/10. An old friend of mine who I hadn't seen for nearly 20 years before my accident, he knocked on my door and shared his story. And, you know, he was just passing through town and he said, his words, he said, he had a spiritual prompt to come and knock on my door and tell me his story. And there's a bit of a story with that as well. But I now call that my miracle. And, you know, I haven't been able to find him ever since. He just kept going and sometimes I search social media and try and find him. I can't find him.
It's like a little spirit angel he's like a spirit angel that just flew into your world exactly when you needed him.
Exactly. And, yeah, that's the best way to describe it as well. He was certainly my angel, no doubt about that. And, 2 days later, I had what I can only call a spiritual awakening. And then my life at that time, I was pretty much rock bottom. And mental health professionals told me that what I had was incurable, that I'd have to take medication the rest of my life, and I would probably never work again. This is what they told me, and that kept me stuck because I believed them. Why wouldn't I? I didn't know.
They're the professionals, right? They're supposed to know exactly what's happening.
They've been trained for many years in universities. Wow. You know, boy. Anyhow, my life did change from that time, 1997, and no more depression and no more meds, and I got my life back and I worked again. And my wife and I we opened a pool hall in the main street of Wagga. We had 16 pool tables and a jukebox. We did that for 6 years. And then I lost a friend to an asthma attack. And my wife was on the same breathing apparatus, a nebulizer, most mornings, or especially in winter, for her asthma. So we decided to move north into a warmer climate. So now we're in North New South Wales, which is a beautiful place. It's not so beautiful at the moment with all the fires, but that's another story. Yeah.
Right.
Anyhow, we moved and I thought, what would I do? So I searched the internet or surfed the internet, they call it, to find out what the latest things in mental health were, what the latest therapies were. And then I eventually found, as you do, if you jump on Google and start surfing, you'll find what you're meant to find. I really believe
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Anyhow, I found a book called The Happiness Trap, which is written by an Australian doctor. And The Happiness Trap is a book about ACT, which stands for Acceptance and Commitment Therapy.
I love ACT.
It's probably the most modern, simplest therapy there is. And it's a mindfulness-based therapy.
It is.
So I read the book and then decided to go along and have Dr. Russ Harris train me as an ACT therapist. But I fell in love with mindfulness, the practice of mindfulness, because even though I got my life back through a spiritual awakening, I was still having difficult, unhelpful, negative thoughts, like we all do.
Right, you're still human.
We're still human. Like, I'm not good enough, I can't do this, that sort of thing. We all have those thoughts. But I could handle it with the simple knowledge that there's a light and dark. I'll just keep it simple because I just love simplicity.
Right.
One of my favourite quotes actually was famous artist, I'm not sure if it was Pablo Picasso or Leonardo da Vinci.
Could you repeat that quote again?
Ultimate sophistication.
Could you repeat that? Yeah,
say
that. Simplicity?
Simplicity is the ultimate sophistication.
Simplicity is the ultimate sophistication. I love that.
Light and dark, or love and fear. And you can't really get much simpler, but it's real. So I got my life, but like I was starting to say there, I was still having unhelpful and negative thoughts.
Right.
But when I started my mindful practice in 2009, which is 11 years ago, pretty much right now. 11 years ago, I started my mindful practice, and it didn't take too long for those thoughts to take a back seat, and that they didn't really show up anymore. And that's by developing a mindful practice and also practicing a little ACT. And I'll just explain ACT for your audience, if you like. Acceptance and commitment therapy. So
I was just going to have, that was going to be the next thing I was going to say. Well, let's tell people what ACT is all about.
Acceptance is pretty self-explanatory because we need to accept ourselves no matter where we're at, no matter how good or bad that is. We need to accept it where we're at right now. Because without doing that, there's no real way forward. You're stuck like I was. Right. So accept it. That's the first step.
I'm going to interject there, John, and say, when I work with my clients around acceptance, they will often say, well, how do I accept what I don't like? Right? Like, that's the big question. How do I accept what I don't like? And my response is always, not accepting it doesn't make it go away. Because it's that resistance to what we don't like that actually makes what we don't like bigger. And it's counterintuitive that when we accept it, it has less of a charge over us and has less power over us.
Exactly. I often say the moment, because mindfulness really is all about noticing our thoughts and feelings and emotions, but mainly our thoughts, because it's usually a thought that leads to a feeling or an emotion. So when we start catching those thoughts in flight, like, I'm not good enough, just for example. Okay, if we start dwelling on that thought, or ruminating on it, or fighting with it, or trying to make it go away, or trying to avoid it with drugs or alcohol or overworking or whatever, it can turn into a real monster.
It does.
And even suicide, it's all caused from thoughts, you know, and buying into them. But when we start accepting those thoughts, no matter how good or bad they are, then our thoughts start to flow and we don't get stuck. And then when you start living in flow, of course, well, it's a beautiful thing, as you know.
It is. Yeah, and the mind, you know, the mind is going to do what the mind does, and the mind produces thoughts. And,
exactly.
You know, we can't stop the thoughts. It's just learning how to not jump on board with them every time they come in.
Even when we meditate, our mind is still producing thoughts.
Oh, yeah.
So go with it. So anyhow, I started studying mindfulness. You know, my wife thought I loved Google more than her, actually. And I've studied mindfulness over 9,000 hours, all different aspects of mindfulness, because I really felt like I had a calling to do this. And that's why I call myself a master of mindfulness these days, because I know who I am. And that's it. But I've simplified it, and it's on my business card, and I'll just show you, actually. I've got one here. I'll put it in the camera. Can you see that?
Yeah.
That's my logo.
Oh, I love that.
Be mindful, pause, connect. That's how I've simplified 9,000 hours of study, actually, into that practice. And if you like, I'll just explain that for your audience.
Yeah, please. Can you actually, before we go ahead with that, we didn't finish off the acceptance and commitment. We got as far as acceptance. So maybe we can just loop back around and finish off that explanation.
Absolutely. I'll lead into that if you like, because that's important. Yeah. Be mindful, pause, connect. Be mindful is a key thought that I teach people to use when we notice unhelpful or negative thoughts, or if we notice our mind in the past, which can make us depressed, or if we notice our mind in the future, that can make us anxious. When we notice these things, then we use the key thought, be mindful. And it's actually an instruction from our heart to our mind. So it's like, be mindful. Then we allow that.
I got this image as you said that, is like the heart pleading, like, please.
Yes. Great. I love that. Because it's all about the heart. But that's kind of a story. Be mindful. We tell our mind to be mindful, and then we allow that to trigger a pause. And it only takes a few seconds. Just a few seconds pausing our mind. I often say the power of mindfulness is in the silence between our thoughts. So the more silence we can create throughout our day, the more power to us.
Right.
Because it's the pause which opens the doors of creativity and intuition.
Absolutely.
So be mindful, pause, and connect. And the connect, this is the important part. And there's three ways we connect, really. We connect with where we are, and take a look around. It doesn't matter where we are. And we use our five senses to do that. And so we connect that way, of course, where we are. And at the same time, we're coming back to the present moment, of course. We're coming back to here. We try and keep our minds where our body is. So we connect that way. We also connect with who we're with. Like right now, when I'm talking, you're fully present with me. And when you talk, I'll be fully present with you, and we have a connection.
Right.
Because we know what it's like when we're talking to someone whose mind is 1,000 miles away.
Oh, yeah. And especially we get that unfortunate habit with everyone holding their phones, and they're saying like, but I'm here right next to you. Yeah, but you're not present. We're not connected. You're looking down.
Exactly. Yeah. And the third way we connect, and probably the most important as far as I'm concerned, and that's connecting with our source energy. Whatever you believe that to be, because that's all powerful in itself. And once we realize we do have a connection with our source energy, and when we realize that at our core, we are energy, and we do have a connection. Everything's connected. We're all connected. So that's the practice. Be mindful, pause, connect.
Be mindful, pause, connect. It's easy enough to remember. It's just harder to do.
I get my clients to write it on sticky notes, write it on their mirror, so they remind themselves every morning, whatever. Be mindful, pause, connect. And after a while, we don't have to give our mind the instruction, be mindful, because we just start doing it automatically, because we create new pathways in our mind, for sure. So that's all very important. But getting back to ACT now, because it's all very to be mindful, come back to the present moment over and over again until it becomes a habit, a very good habit, because life doesn't pass you by. You don't miss those little opportunities that are trying. The universe is trying to present itself. It's trying to help us, but we've got to live in awareness to pick up the signals. Right. Sometimes it can be the smallest of things that can lead to really big things. So be mindful, pause, connect. We do that, and that's all very well, but we still need somewhere for our minds to go. And that's where commitment comes in. Because when we notice the unhelpful or negative thought, be mindful, pause, connect, that's great. That connects us with the present moment. But then the thing to do, and this is what we learn in ACT, is to focus on our values, the things that are important to us.
I love this so much.
So if we do some values work, then we can, if we memorize 4 or 5 of them, then we can go to one of our values and actually make an action plan, like a plan to, or a commitment to do something based on that value. And then once we start doing that, it doesn't take too long. And then same thing, we start creating new pathways in our mind, and those unhelpful and negative thoughts don't show up as much because they don't want to waste their time. And it works. So that's the practice. Yeah.
I love ACT. A couple years ago was at a conference in Washington, D.C. and was given a training on ACT by one of the founders of the practice. And I have to say, it was one of the best trainings I've ever received. And what I love about this model is it, to me, makes a lot of intuitive sense.
Yes.
And it's very clear of how to be values driven to keep us on our path. And so much of my work in the therapy world, people don't know too much about ACT still, and they really think like cognitive behavioral is the way to go. And yet, ironically, cognitive behavioral is the opposite of mindfulness to me almost, because in cognitive work, you're trying to replace negative thoughts. And where in mindfulness and ACT, well, let's just accept that they're thoughts. But what we want to replace is our attachment to the thought, or our belief of the thought, or having the thought take over. And so to me, it's really that ability to shift rather than replace, which is a different practice. And
absolutely. Yeah.
It's such a huge thing. And the values piece, I wanted to ask you, because I've been trained and I teach in different ways with my clients how to discover their values and how to decide, because some people get stuck in that piece of, well, I don't know what my values are. And, they can be very simple practices.
I'll just give my book a plug now, Jory.
Okay, please. Mindful Actions.
Yep. I wrote that in 2014 after I created a Facebook event, actually, and I invited Australians with mental suffering to the event, and 4,700 people clicked on it. And I ended up writing a blog every day of May in 2014. And
amazing.
Then it transformed so many lives. The feedback was amazing on the blogs that I wrote, so I turned it into a simple little book. But anyhow, in that I talk about values, and one of the ways we can work out our values is by imagining ourselves at our own funeral. There we are, laying in the casket. Then we imagine our loved one standing there, and then the thing to do is try and imagine what you would like your loved ones to be saying about you. So your audience, you can try this later. When I did it many years ago now, I imagined my kids standing there and they were saying, "Oh, Dad always had time for us." So that became a value for me.
Family time, quality time, yeah.
Sure, yeah, absolutely. So then when we notice that, getting back to the practice, when we notice that unhelpful or negative thought, we go to that value, for example. We have other values too, and make an action plan, like okay, on Saturday, I'm going to take the kids down to the river for a swim or whatever, you know. So that's how it works. And you can see what happens. You're actually training your mind to go from the negative to the positive.
Mm-hmm.
So when the negative shows up, we make an action plan based on our values, and then that totally shifts our mind space onto something positive and something
Right.
that we love. And when you start doing that, you know, over and over again, wow, it will transform your life.
It really will. And, you know, there's so many studies that prove that being values driven is what creates longer term change. You know, because so many people, they want to change something and they kind of go in reactionary mode of, well, I'll just do something different, but they're not landing at a place that they can stick with, which is why resolutions don't work, right? New Year's resolutions, they always fail because we're trying to just go somewhere opposite without actually connecting to what our higher needs are. One of the ways I was trained in discovering values was kind of a fun exercise of, if you were traveling somewhere and you could take only 3 things, like the most important things to you, what would you take? And from that, you sense what's really important to me. So, you know, people were like feeling almost shameful in answers, because I was in a group of answering, oh, I would take my phone. Because it seems superficial, but yet my phone allows me connection to my family. My phone allows me to access my clients, and so I can be in service. My phone allows me information and connection. So really, it's not the phone I value, it's what the phone allows me to value, right?
Yeah.
Or like, I always travel with a travel pillow. And so it might seem silly, if I'm out traveling, I always take my travel pillow. So what does that represent to me? One of my values is comfort and security. And, you know, I mean, while it might seem silly, it tells me a lot about myself. And then I can derive a value from that object.
Beautiful. I love that. I'm going to use that. Thanks, Jory.
You're very welcome. Yeah, because I think, you know, values, you know, and then I also, you know, I have a list of a piece of paper with 100 words or more, and I'll have clients circle the ones that either they bring into their life or they want to bring more of into their life. And then Brene Brown's model is, now take whatever words you've circled and narrow it down to 2, like categorize them. Like, what's the umbrella under which all these 10 words fall, and see if you can group them into an umbrella, right? So like, one of my highest values is authenticity. And while my value is family, I could actually take authenticity as the umbrella of family, because when I'm with my family, I get to truly be myself. Or I'm expressing my truest self when I'm with those I love the most. It's like, there's different ways I think can be a great exercise even in of itself to continue to uncover that value.
You're very wise, Jory, and spot on. It's so important.
So
for many years now, I haven't had a plan because I don't need one. The plan comes to me.
Yeah.
And that's all through the practice of mindfulness, the practice of pausing my mind throughout the day and connecting with Source. Because honestly, you know, when you set an intention to, as long as the intention is to help the world or your community or your next door neighbour or whatever, you set an intention, then the universe starts moving the furniture for you. But of course, you've got to be living in awareness to get that. But the plan comes to you. It's very real. You know, there's lots of people talking about this in all sorts of different languages, but it's all the same thing. We'll just keep it simple. But I love the fact that when you set an intention and start living in awareness, then you become part of the universe.
Yeah, I believe it. So your Facebook group, Mindfully Mad, tell us more about that.
Well, mindfullymad.org is an organisation I started a few years ago, 2015. And that's a place where you can find a mindfulness mentor. And that's what I spend my time doing these days, is teaching people to teach what I teach, basically. And that's mindfulness and some ACT as well, of course.
Okay.
And also mentoring skills.
I love that.
So it's a place to find a mindfulness mentor. Are you listed there? We'll have to get you listed there too, Jory.
Yes.
If you're not. Yeah. And it's also a place where you can share your story. And so mindfullymad.org. So people are welcome to go along and have a look.
And what is the MAD is an acronym, correct?
Yeah, mindfully mad, making a difference. That's what
I love that.
For. So it's actually mindfully making a difference. I really believe mindfulness is the best hope for the world to become awakened.
I believe it.
Yeah. Religions and governments can't do it, but we can.
Yeah.
Jory. We can help
and
one
we
person
are
at a time, and it's all about the ripple effect, like on the cover of my book.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
You know, I believe it, and I often will say, kind of jokingly, but not so much, that mindfulness is the answer to everything.
Everything.
Everything. And I'll say again, not, taking lightly either of these two things, but I'll say whether you're sitting in traffic or dealing with cancer, the tools are the same. How you respond is the same regardless of the challenge. And, it's, people don't realize you can respond the same way for something small as you would something big, because it's all about that response. It's, because we have those knee-jerk reactions, but very rarely do those reactions serve us. Very rarely do they actually get us unstuck. But it's those mindful responses.
Absolutely. Also in my book, I cover that, because with mindfulness, you start to realize that what other people say and do is where they're coming from.
Yeah.
It rarely has anything to do with us.
Right.
And by practicing pausing, in other words, so if someone's in your face, angry or carrying on or whatever, then we can pause, mindfully pause, and then what will drop into our mind out of that pause will be something, some divine intelligence or creative or something wise. So then we start, just like you say, responding rather than reacting.
Right.
Because even in my old days, if someone says something that didn't line up with my beliefs, say, and this is a very common problem too, if it didn't line up with my beliefs, I would react.
Right.
But not so now, because mindfulness has made me very open-minded, and I don't react anymore.
Well, and I think, for me and what I work with a lot of my clients around, one of the ways to not be reactive is to always come back to that place of compassion. Right? It's that compassion that can, or the self-compassion that can have you say to yourself, I really want to react right now because this is really hurtful or hard to hear. So let me just honor that this is hard. And let me have compassion for the other person that maybe they're acting out because they're in pain for something that's going on in their lives that I may not be aware of. Or just compassion for the fact that we have differences and we don't need to see eye to eye.
Exactly. So when people are in your face and you pause, and what often does come to you is an insight. You'll get an insight into why they're carrying on that way or saying what they're saying. Why? There's always a reason.
Right.
Yeah, and you develop empathy and compassion, and it's all very beautiful.
Yeah, there's always an emotion driving a behavior. And we so often focus on the behaviors and not the emotions driving the behavior. And having compassion for the emotions driving the behavior makes you less reactive on the behavior.
Perfect.
Yeah, it's a lot of the parenting work that I teach of how to actually connect emotionally and empathically with kids. And I'll give even couples that I do couples work with, I'll give them that model of a tantruming 5-year-old, because they're doing the same thing with each other. But it's, it's that same ability to how can we connect empathically and compassionately and focus on what's driving it. And because we too often are so quick to react.
Hence the reason for so many breakups these days.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
And totally necessary. They were in love once.
Yeah. I have a little acronym I think you might like of when I am talking about mindfulness. I call it the ABCs of Mindfulness. And it's simply awareness, breath, choice.
ABC. Awareness, breath, choice. I love it.
And I sometimes, want to have it be ABCC because it's awareness, breath, choice, and compassion. So the C could be either one. But when I say choice, for those of you who, well, obviously if you're listening to this podcast, you've seen what the logo is. My symbol is a spiral. So if you are listening and you haven't remembered it, when you're done listening, go look at the episode and you'll see right on my logo, and it's a spiral. It's a mindfulness symbol. And there's a spiral at the bottom, and then there's a line coming out of it. And the line coming out of the spiral is not a straight line. There's lots of twists and turns. And only towards the top does the line straighten out. And I use that symbol as a description of where we're at, because what it means is when you're in the spiral, that's where you get stuck. That's where you get triggered. That's where you get hooked in. That's where you're just spinning on autopilot, right? And the line out is how you get unstuck. And those are the tools that we use. So when I say awareness, breath, choice, it's the awareness of, oh, look, I'm in the spiral right now. Look where I'm at. I'm really stuck. I'm really triggered. These thoughts, these emotions, these sensations, these distractions, whatever it is. So let me breathe. When I breathe, I'll calm my brain, I'll calm my body, I'll get back into the present moment. And now I have a choice. Now I'm coming into my intention, right? My choice is to either go back into the spiral and stay stuck, because ultimately I can choose that if I want to. If I choose it with awareness, at least I'm doing it consciously, right? Or I can choose to work my way out of the spiral. And those are all the tools of compassion and self-compassion and loving kindness and equanimity and present moment and, you know, noticing what's arising. And so I love this simple, just ABC, awareness, breath, choice.
Oh, Jory, I love you. Move over, Brené Brown.
From your mouth to Oprah's ears.
Yeah.
So
I love that.
Yeah,
ABC,
thank you.
Yeah, I'm going to use that too.
Good. It's just, you know, it's just simple. And I feel like, you know, and I think I've been on retreat with John Kabat-Zinn, and he says, you know, mindfulness is the easiest thing to do, but the hardest thing to remember to do.
That's was my problem in 2009 when I first started, was remembering to do it. That's why I encourage people to write it on a sticky notes, be mindful, pause, connect. And once you start getting in the habit of it and start seeing the benefits of it, because you will, it doesn't matter who you are or what path you're on, what journey you're on, you will see the benefits. Absolutely. Yeah.
Do you know what I've started doing for myself and guiding my clients and doing is I have an iPhone, and I'm sure any smartphone could do it. I've been putting in my calendar to show up at 7 a.m. every morning and 11:15 at night, at the same thing every day, to pop up as a reminder, and it's an intention. And when it pops up in the morning, at 7 a.m. I have just gotten up, so I'm in the midst of getting ready for my day. And I see it pop up on my phone, and it's that moment to pause and just reconnect with that intention. And then I have another one pop up at 11:15 at night. That's usually right when I'm going to bed. And like last night, I was setting my alarm and I forgot that it was going to pop up, and I saw it, and it was like, I just exhaled, and it was just that great reminder. So I love the ability to take something like our phones, which can be such a source of distraction and not being present, and help us remind us, right?
Yes. Yeah. Beautiful.
So if people want to get more information, what is the best way for them to find you?
Well, if you Google Be Mindful, Pause, Connect, you'll find me, because that's my thing. I've made it my thing, and it's all over the internet everywhere. So that's the easiest way to find me. And if your listeners, I've got a little gift for your listeners, because I showed you my book with the ripple effect, because I really do believe that those people who are touched by our ripple, then, you know, my hope is that they then create a ripple of their own, because that way we can change the world. We can. I really believe that. Yeah. So I'll send you a link that you can share, and a link to my PDF of my book, and it's actually a little updated, and I've added what mindfulness is and what mindfulness is not, because there's a lot of misapprehensions out there about mindfulness. People think it's meditation for one thing, and when we meditate, of course, we're practicing mindfulness, but mindfulness isn't something you make time to do. You make it your life. Yeah. So.
Yeah, I always say mindfulness isn't something you add to your to-do list. It's what's on your to-be list.
Beautiful. I love that. To be. Yeah. Be mindful.
It's a very ironic response when people say, I don't have time to be mindful. Well, you sure as hell made time to react. Well, Well, John, thank you so much for your time today. I know we've been connected for years online, and it's wonderful to actually speak to you almost face to face. And I'm really sending a lot of love and healing and compassion to your beautiful country of Australia with the fires, and for all those who are experiencing suffering, sending a lot of compassion to the world, but specifically to your neck of the woods right now. And
thank you, Jory.
Thank you so much for your wisdom and for doing the work that you're doing. And your journey is really inspirational to have gone from uncurable, quote unquote, mental health concerns and issues and medications to living a life of your own choice and beautiful presence is really inspiring. So thanks for sharing your story.
Thank you, Jory.
To continue your journey forward, find Jory Rose on Facebook and Instagram to become part of her growing community. You can also gain access to her meditations, books, online classes, or to sign up for an upcoming retreat, visit her at joryrose.com. That's JOREEROSE.com.